Most people are looking for, how do I make a life worth living and a retirement worth having? In life, we have moments of time to make a difference for someone. The only question is, are we making a difference for someone to prove our own worth, or are we making a difference for someone to prove our own career? You see, the people who put their careers above helping and serving other people live carefully and safely in the world don't really get very far later in life. You see, there is some principles of God's house that people sort of forget today. The main one is that the Lord your God lords over everything on the planet. He literally can move heaven, he can move the earth, and he can move love in someone's life. We also know that there are people in the world who like power. They like to utilize their power, they like to force people to do things, and they like to push on people to see how they will respond. The truth is, if they didn't have a permission to do so, if they didn't gather consent from the individual through a legal process of talking with the lawyer and bringing the person in and to a comfortable place which is safe for everyone, then it's not a lawful type of situation. Now, in time, we have moments of time to help people. The help a person needs is rarely what we tend to offer. Rarely is it a person who goes up to a homeless person in the middle of an affluent community and says, "It looks like you're in a bit of a struggle. I'm wondering what I might be able to do to help you to move yourself further away from that struggle instead of further deeper into the struggle." You see, many people are community servants, but they don't always take their role seriously, and they don't always take their role in a legal way. You see, the legal name of an individual is the most precious thing they own today. When a first person comes in from a foreign land and steals an identity, it is unlawful. Yet when other people create litigation abuse that destroy a person's reputation, harms their legal name, it is another form of identity theft. It literally ruins the name of a person so they have trouble getting employment, so they have trouble having success, and it openly is a villainous act that in front of God in heaven is really unthinkable. You see, the Lord puts the soul in an individual. The Lord can pull a soul if a person's about to die. The Lord can pull a soul if a fetus is going to be aborted. But the Lord does not put the soul in until much later in the child's rearing through the womb. The soul doesn't enter into play until much later in the third trimester. How many physicians tell their patients that? So many people in the religious right think that the soul is inputted immediately into the child. It is not. The fetus is a body. It has to grow. It has to incubate. It has to do all little things like a chick hatchling would in an incubation farm. But openly, the Lord is the power in that situation. The Lord procures the soul that it feels is right for that family, either to love on in a perfect way or perhaps an imperfect child to push that family to love more, to struggle a little bit, to prove themselves in God's house, to move themselves into a position of financial prowess or something else, to live and suffer in a position of poverty. But openly, everyone has a challenge in the world. There is always a challenge in someone's soul about their physical being, something they may not like about themselves. It's a rare person that is in love with every aspect of their overall physical being. In some cases, a child has an extra tail. In some cases, the man has fur on his face. In other cases, a child has Down syndrome. In other cases, a child has a mental deficit. In some cases, there is an illness of long term, such as diabetes or other type A or type B. I don't know the difference. But what I'm saying is that illness and sort of separation of the soul and the body has occurred throughout the millennium of time. My point is that the Lord is a perfect being. The Lord can create a perfect person in every single human being. But in order to do that, people have to be less vain. They have to be more able to handle everyone being perfect. When people are less perfect, they have to make room. They have to give mercy. They have to extend grace to others. I know in my teaching and instruction of Japanese language that I would often have in my adult conversational classes through the IUPUI Continuing Learning Network students that were predominantly adults, but some teenagers that had some things on the spectrum that they had to work out. I was often told by a parent or guardian who might be in the class, or I would get told on the first day when they brought the student to class in a very polite, very professional, very private way. Immediately, of course, I could tell a lot about a student, and so I could just simply say, yes, I'm aware. And that usually made the parent at ease. I've been quite accustomed to teaching people on the spectrum a long time. My own Japanese child had some challenges. ODD was one of them, ADHD was another, and sometimes just difficulty fitting in because of the affluence versus our aspect of living. In life, we have moments of time to show someone that we are loyal to them. What I feel is that men and women are very disloyal to one another. They are quick to share gossip that they have procured through trusting conversations. They are quick to participate in illegal and immoral gossip that harms people's lives. They are quick to lie to protect themselves. They are quick to try to take things that are not their own. And openly, we even had a comic book recently in the local newspaper of the comics section that sort of showed that in a little bit of an illicit way, where the moral of, I guess, the comic was that even the angel was willing to steal money from an armored truck. I found it offensive because we should not be teaching the land, our children, or people in general that it's okay to steal money from anyone. The Lord does bequeath some people more riches than others. That is true. They often are people that have fully submitted their lives to the Lord. If we look at some of the leading preachers and leading authors of the day, those who give and celebrate God's house usually go on to great success. Even if in the beginning they struggled a little to go through the lessons of learning how to publish, learning how to write better, learning how to write for readers to understand their work even better. And openly, that is what journalists and reporters do. We literally learn and grow through our aspects. I can remember a particular movie with William Hurt and Holly Hunt and other people like that, and I can't remember all the leads, that literally was about how broadcast news went about. I think that might have even been the title. It was a brilliant display of a person's life. There has been others since then with famous stars that might be portraying some of the leading journalists of the day and how they grew through things. But the advantage of that film with someone like Michelle Pfeiffer was that it put it in a really human-oriented way. It allowed people to truly feel their lives. It allowed them to feel them as human beings, as professionals, as other aspects of a person's life. I know that sometimes when I get pushed on by people, I can communicate the absolute truth that every single human being in the land is a secret shopper of sorts. They have been referred to an establishment by someone, they go in on that referral, or they've discovered it through advertising and marketing, and then they have an experience in that particular program, that product, or that actual person who's involved in promoting that literal business service. I've had some wonderful experiences in Hamilton County and some poor experiences in Hamilton County since I changed my professional look from being in sport coats and a trimmed goatee to being a little bit more Harley, a little bit more ZZ Top, and a little bit more free with my life to simply take time from having worked all my adult life to provide for a family, and after a period of loss decide, you know what, I'm just going to take it easy. I'm going to make it slow. I'm going to figure out where I want to work, what I want to do with my life now that I've lost a life partner of my entire life, and I've finished grieving that process, and I'm just going to figure it out as I go. Maybe it's a midlife crisis. After all, I might turn 50 here in the next few months, and the only wish that I have, I've literally had now for, almost 7 years. And that one wish is still within my soul. I long to see one person. I long to have a sit-down dinner conversation that is not rushed by children or teenagers, that openly is just the two of us in a home with some good food that we select together at a grocery store, at a fresh market or something like that, or perhaps a dinner out and then a walk back to the house to have some time to talk and let that conversation carry into the night. And I just mean conversation, literally catching up on life, talking about children and what happened over the years we haven't seen each other, and openly just a rekindling of a deep love that I feel in my soul for one person. I will be honest and truthful that I have openly and sincerely asked that individual to marry me. She is only the second person in the world I've ever asked that question to or popped that question to, like many old men talk about. She is someone that I knew from the get-go, the very first moment practically that I met her and had a conversation, and maybe it was the third moment that I loved her deeply in my soul. I can remember often feeling that after I got off the phone. I would just say, Lord, I love that woman. I openly, deeply, profoundly love that woman. Why is that, God? And I would often ask the Lord that question. But I also know from my own soul, my own experience of having loved someone a very long time in a long-term partnership of total faithfulness, total loyalty, total aspects of providing for a family and a son and all the things that a man in this world has to do to keep his family going despite challenges in marketing a business practice, dealing with clients who don't want to pay, and openly having to suffer through a few months of being a little short, that in reality people do eventually come through for us, but not the same level as the people that we love the most in the world. Now, when I talk like this, I'm talking about real life, real love, real hope, real aspects of a proud man, perhaps, saying, look, I've only loved a few people in my life. I've been very selective of who I've had those liaisons with. I've been very careful to be safe in those regards to their lives as well as my own. I've never told one single family member about who I'm in love with now, but I'm pretty sure they violated my rights. My birth sisters literally went into my property, took copies of paperwork that weren't their lawful right to have, and have violated my journals and other aspects of my private life, only so they could say they know me better. It was immoral what they did. It was illegal on many grounds, and if they have any copies of my personal life's documentation from anything from banking to life insurance policies to anything else, they have taken those things illegally, immorally, and illicitly. And I'm not going to be ashamed to say it. That not at one time ever did I say, you may have rights to these papers. And openly, if some total stranger took those, then that is totally an attempt of identity theft. We had plenty of foreigners in our community at the time of those papers and a lot of property going missing. My possessions are not for someone to pilfer. My possessions are not for someone to mock. My possessions are not for someone to damage. The Lord bequeathed those items to me. I can remember the moments and the magical ones of how I acquired just about everything that I own. I openly know when it was, where it was, on what shelf it was, practically for just about everything. Even the things literally from Japan, I can remember the city in which I procured them in, even if the papers are now long gone because someone rummaged through my property. I'm looking for specific things for my religious altar, and I'm not finding them in my property room. When I look for intimate medical items, I find them completely gone when I was in my last apartment home. Some person mocked my life and thought they had rights to take things. That was a lie they told themselves. There are monsters in this land. There are people who lie, steal, and cheat others out of a life. And I sit there in awe, because I sit there literally and wonder, on what earth did they get raised that did not teach them about God in heaven and the Lord's right to say no to their lives? You see, they might be thinking they're saying no to someone else's life, but the Lord is watching them, opening people's hearts and minds to certain things and closing their hearts and minds to other things. And openly, my loss is not something I caused entirely. It is something I struggled through. You see, I didn't have any additional communications with other people because it was not appropriate at the time. I literally got told to talk to the hand on several occasions when I simply said, love, don't go. I want to talk to you. I literally remember being in the freezing rain on a porch in a Outback hat, literally standing there with 3 years of gifts to give, a proposal of marriage to offer, an invitation to be wed, and openly it didn't work because I led with the wrong silly gift. I'd procured a lot of things over the course of time. Every time I literally saw something and the Lord said, move your soul on that one. Do something on that. Take a hold of that. Share that humor. And now I sit here several years later, and that love in my soul still lingers. It's not like I don't know what's what. It's not like I don't know the risk of loving someone and not having the chance to tell them why in person. Now, I'm not going to provide any more of my story, but I'm just going to say one thing. In life, we have lifelong loves. And a lifelong love moves themselves into our life at the Lord's beckoning. This lifelong love literally came off of a very profound prayer that I'm not going to talk about much because it is literally discussed in my book, the one that everyone's been stealing. That's an imperfect work by a beginning budding author. But openly, I have other works that someone destroyed and dismantled in my little locked lockbox, if you will, or my storage locker, which is, I guess, the more appropriate term in American culture. But my point is that there's a monster in the land who thinks he has the right to interfere with my relationships, to infiltrate my love life, to mess around in my property, and I have to wonder, what God do they worship? Because it is the God's love in the world that helps us to acquire things. It is God's angels that help us to say, look, you need to look at that, or you need to look at this, or do you see this and you have fancy for that? And openly, what I know about karma and how that works in other lands is that those that harm a life will openly lose their life in some way that doesn't look right in terms of the world's public eye. You see, because it's always the illicit and immoral ones that literally think they can outplay God, and they can't. You can never outplay God. And if you prayed for something, for someone to do something, and they never do it, but someone else entirely does it all, it might just mean that the Lord has a different plan for your life, and you better get on board. Otherwise, you're going to suffer. You're going to struggle. You're going to not be noticed by people as well. You're going to be less effective as you were before, and openly, that can happen to a person. Now, when I'm talking about moments in time. I'm talking about how people love others, and I'm talking literally about the fact that in life, we have a moment to change the course of our own lives as well as others. And if a person is attacked in those moments by siblings or by birth family mothers or by anyone who thinks they have a right to do it, that individual who led that attack will lose so much in the Lord's house. While the Lord's house is known through the scripture to have many rooms, the Lord has plans for people's lives. There are some plans that are tough and a struggle to teach that individual more about who they can become and literally who they should be representing in the world. But there are other times in life when we're supposed to be in great affluence and influence, and yet we still have a struggle. And we have to wonder and look at our life and go, okay, where am I lying? Where am I harming someone? Where am I not telling them important things? Where am I not disclosing my life? But here's what I know. The people with an illness from the birth realm do not have to disclose any long-term illnesses. They don't have to disclose any mental illnesses, especially if it was provided to them illicitly and immorally. And openly, that happens a lot. People want to stock their programs with individuals, which means that they might lie about someone's rights. Now, in life, we have moments of time to say, I love you, my girl. And openly, I hope I get that chance. I literally hope I get that chance after all this time, after all the millions of signs, and I mean literally millions of signs that I have been provided in my last few years for the one that I love, even to the point that I can be sitting behind a building looking at a lake, and that sign will show up in front of me. Or like this morning, I'll be waiting at the Lord's beckoning for something, and boom, it's right in front of me. You see, the Lord knows our hearts, minds, and souls, but He also literally knows who is right for who and why. It's the foolish ones that don't stop to listen, don't stop to consider, and don't stop to think about the liability we all have to the Lord. You see, we all are brought into this world to love God. Some of us do, and then we linger away, and then we come back to loving God in our late stages of life. There's always someone who should be in a Bible study or should be fellowshipping with other people, but might not be able to get there due to transportation challenges like me. I know that at this present moment I'm having two issues with my feet. One, I desperately need a bath to clean them off and to make sure I don't get any sort of infections that are being put upon me while I sleep by monstrous people. But other than that, I have pain in my feet because of the incredible nights of frostbite I endured at the hands of birth family who just couldn't find a place for me in their homes. And after all, if a sibling can't open a car door or get a mother to loan a vehicle vehicle to allow a son to get out of the cold, then why would a total stranger be kind enough to say, hey, I've got a pup tent, let me put it up in my backyard and you're welcome to stay on our property. We'll make sure that no one messes with you. You can welcome to use our Wi-Fi. We want to help you get on in life. Very few people do that. You see, only a true Christian would offer that, and only if they pass the Lord's inspection for my life would I be able to openly say yes. The people that have been monstrously monitoring my life, stalking me, harassing me every time I literally walk someplace that is a safe way to walk in this land, some police officer interferes with that. And I don't have to tell you anything other than the truth in this matter. And openly, some reporters have been watching it now. And openly, that's important. Now, if I say openly one more time, I might hurl. But hey, this is an authentic, transparent audiocast that I don't even bother to edit anymore because I don't have the technology anymore. I don't have the time, literally. And in life, we have to just prove who we are each moment. If you're a person of God and if you have an opportunity that might allow me to utilize my skill sets, I'd be valuable at giving me the chance, the open chance, to talk with the HR recruiter, to get past them to an HR manager, and have a conversation that makes the most sense to that individual based on their desire of hiring new talent. In life, we have moments of time to make all the difference in the world for people. I really hope that today's moment made a difference in your life. Thanks for listening.